talking about different ways you can dry herbs and then use those herbs to make oil infusions. Working with herbs is something that I've actually been doing for quite a while. So it was knowledge I already had when I started practicing Wicca. So it was something I was able to bring into my craft already, that I already knew how to do, and that's proven to be very useful. So there are a few different ways you can go about drying herbs, and you can do this with herbs that you've grown yourself, something you foraged. You can do this with the fresh herbs that you buy at the grocery store if you want to, because you know in the produce section sometimes they have fresh herbs you can buy. And if you'd rather have them dried, you can certainly use them for that, or if you can't find them dried. But there's a few methods ranging from simple to more complex. So the first way to dry herbs, and the easiest, is to hang them. So you gather them all together at the bottom of the stem, wrap a piece of twine or string around it, find a place to hang it. This method takes the longest, probably 2 to 3 weeks. I usually let my herbs hang even longer than that, sometimes up to a month, depending on what it is and how dense the bundle is, because you want to make sure everything is completely dried out. If you have any leaves or part of the stem or anything on the inside that's still not completely dry when you're ready to use it, you may have a mold issue. So you want to make sure the herbs are totally dry when you're hanging them in a bundle. In all cases, but especially when you're hanging them in a bundle, because like I said, it takes a while. So you have to be patient. I like to hang herbs on a shelf in my kitchen, kind of in front of where I keep my flour and my sugar and all that. And I also like to hang them on the windowsill sometimes if it's an herb that's not going to be affected by too much sunlight. Another way you can dry herbs is to lay them out flat on some type of screen, or with flower petals and things, you can use paper towels. I like to dry flowers on paper towels. I just, you pull the flower head off of the stem and lay them out, and they dry very easily and very quickly using that method on a paper towel, and the paper towel helps pull some of the moisture away from the flower. The trick with this is you need the space to have flowers lying out on paper towels for a day or two. I actually use the top of my dryer because nothing else is up there and it's out of the way and my cats don't mess with it. Sometimes people will construct special types of drying racks out of like a screen like you'd use in a window, and then they fasten it onto some kind of wood frame in like a rectangle or a square, and you can lay the herbs out on that to dry so that you have air moving in both directions if you have a place to put it. But both of those methods work really well. You can actually make the drying screens yourself if you have a little bit of extra wood and some screens, from a window, or any kind of mesh that isn't going to affect the overall plant. Something else you can do that takes a few hours and some know-how is you can dry stuff in the oven. And with this, you have to be really careful. I attempted to dry some lemon peels in the oven once, and it was a total disaster. It was a nightmare. I burned them so bad. I had these dark brown, hard, wedge-shaped things instead of dried lemon peels like I'd hoped for. So if you want to try to dry stuff in the oven, make sure you do a lot of research on how long, at what temperature, and then you also need to take into consideration your oven. Does it run hot? Does it run a little on the cool side? Do you burn stuff a lot in it? How does it function? Is it gas? Is it electric? So you need to take all that into consideration, and it might take a couple of times for some trial and error to figure out exactly how long and at what temperature you need to dry things in your oven. Another way to make dried herbs or flowers is a food dehydrator. I know some people have dehydrators in their homes and they use those to dry herbs and flowers, and that process is very quick, just a few hours, and then poof, look at all these dried herbs you have. That does require an investment in a dehydrator, and if you don't dry a ton of herbs, or you just don't have that kind of cash on hand, then the other methods are perfectly suitable. And you can use all three. You can hang some, you can lay some out to dry, you can put some in the oven depending on what you have and how quickly you need it. But a food dehydrator is certainly an option as well if you have one that you can use or if you're able to go out and get one. That's really good too if you need something dried very, very quickly or you need to do it in large quantities. So that's something to think about. That's better. I'm doing this on my phone today because my camera decided to overheat and malfunction, so I just decided I was going to use my phone and just get it done. So I'm playing a little bit with camera angles and lighting and all that to make it work. So after you have your herbs dried, what can you do with them? You can use them for a lot of different things. You can use them in spell work, making bottles, like spell jars or sachets, things of that nature. You can use them in candle anointing, where you anoint the candle in oil and then roll it in the herbs if there's a particular herb that you want the correspondences of in your spell. And of course, if it's a culinary herb, you can cook with it. And if it's a medicinal herb, you can use the medicinal properties of that herb by making an oil infusion or a tincture or something else. A tincture is when you put something in alcohol, like vodka, for example, and let it sit in the alcohol for a certain amount of time, and the alcohol absorbs the properties of that plant. For example, I made everyone homemade vanilla extract for Christmas by soaking vanilla beans in a jar of vodka for 2 months. And it's the most delicious vanilla extract ever. I can't take credit for much other than the recipe I found on Pinterest and then following the instructions. But that is a tincture. An oil infusion is similar, but instead of putting the herb in alcohol, you put it in some type of oil. I like to use either grapeseed oil or avocado oil. Avocado oil in some areas is hard to find. It can be kind of pricey. I have that giant bottle because I found it at Costco for really cheap. They were having just a sale, and I happened upon it. But ordinarily, I would probably just go to the grocery store in the cooking oil aisle and get grapeseed oil, because this is not something I'm doing all the time. I don't sell products that I've made with the oil infusion, so I don't need a whole lot. A bottle of grapeseed oil is going to last me a while. There are other types you can use as well, like sweet almond oil, palm oil. Some people like to use olive oil. I find olive oil to be a little heavy, a little dense. So I like to shy away from olive oil when it comes to oil infusions. I use it for other purposes, such as candle anointing and so forth. But you get your carrier oil and your dried herbs. So for example, I have some rose petals here, and if I wanted to make a rose oil infusion, I'm going to put them in a jar like this, like I have done. And then after I fill my jar with my dried herbs, flowers, whatever I'm using, I'm going to pour the oil over it so that it fills up the jar. And I have an example of one that I made last week. This is chickweed that I foraged from my yard, infusing in, I believe I used almond oil. So you can see that I filled the jar with my chickweed, and then I filled it all the rest of the way up with oil. And then you give it a good shake. And I've been keeping this on a sunny windowsill in my bedroom. I did label it. You want to make sure you always label it, chickweed, and then the date, May 12th. And I'm going to let this set and absorb and infuse for probably a month to 6 weeks. So I just made this on the 12th, and it's going to sit until, I'm probably going to let it sit until about July 1st, just to make sure that it's really working. And then I can take my oil infusion and I can use it for a few different things. The thing that I'm going to be doing is making a salve. And I'm actually going to have a video on that a little bit later when I make my purple dead nettle salve to use on bug bites and, you know, scratches and things like that that we get around here in the summer. So after your set amount of time has passed for your oil infusion, you then strain the herbs out using some type of strainer or cloth. Cheesecloth is really the best thing, because then you can squeeze and get all of the oil out of the plant matter, and you're not going to have like little leaves and particulates and things floating around in your oil. And then you have your oil to use for whatever you want. Now, you can make these for magical purposes as well. You can, as you're making the oil, say you want to use it in a money spell or a prosperity spell or protection spell. As you are working to create the oil, you're going to state your intention and focus on that. Focus your intention as you're filling the jar with your herbs. As you're filling the jar with the oil, over the herbs and over the oil, you're going to state your intentions and focus that energy. You may even meditate over it for a little while. Meditate over the separate parts or the finished product, whatever works. And then again, you want to let it sit for a month to 6 weeks, depending on what the herb is and what type of oil you used and how long you want it to infuse. And then you can use that in your magical workings. And I do have some infused oils I made for the purpose of spell work. I don't make as much because you don't need quite as much, but for something like a salve, you need quite a bit. So I am making larger jars, my repurposed jar. So that is how you make an oil infusion from herbs you've dried. Now, what is the difference between an oil infusion and an essential oil? Well, an oil infusion is simply, oil that's had herbs soaking in it for a specific amount of time so that the oil absorbs the properties of the plant matter. An essential oil is much more concentrated. It is made from pulling the oils, the natural oils of the plant directly from it. It's a long process. It takes specialized equipment, and it takes a lot of plant matter. So if you're going to make lavender essential oil, for example, you need an entire lavender field almost to get, a bottle of essential oil. And that's part of the reason why essential oils are so pricey, is because of the amount of plant matter that it takes to create them and the amount of time and energy in the process, requiring specialized equipment to pull the oil from the plant itself. And essential oils are great. But if you want to make your own oil in your own home that you poured your energy into, infused oils are a wonderful, easy way to do that. It just takes a little bit of patience and a little bit of time. So I hope that you all have enjoyed this instructional video today. I hope that my camera work on my phone turns out to be successful. Please follow me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram under Scarlet Ocean Flame, and I try to post pictures every day or every other day. I post on there when I've got a new video up. And I'm going to be making some announcements very shortly on there and in a video as well that hopefully people will get excited about. So until then, have a blessed day, and may the goddess smile upon you, and above all, be kind.